Hello tubers, welcome to another instructional video from deep within the bowels of Dr. Jet's laboratory, located somewhere beneath a nondescript building located somewhere on the Southern California coast. Today I'm going to talk about making a cheap Chinese production guitar play and feel like a good guitar. This is an Indio classic. I think it's from Monoprice. There's Glary. There's a whole bunch of these cheap Chinese guitars. Retail price for this thing, is $100. So what do you want for $100? I mean, I know people that spend $100 for a knob. So the biggest thing on these cheap guitars is how they feel. I'm running my hands up and down the neck here, and it feels like a cheese grater. Now, I did check the frets for being level, and overall, they're pretty good. And if you zero way in here, I don't know if this will get in here, on the fret ends, you can see they're not really that bad. The problem is fret sprout. When they built this guitar, the wood still had some moisture in it, and as such, it was just a little bit larger. And as the wood dries out, it shrinks a little bit, and 0.005 of an inch, and you get the cheese grater effect. So if this were a real expensive guitar, I'd take that little flat file I showed you once before and file each one of these edges like that. This being a cheap guitar, we're going to take a budget approach to this and make it feel good to play without putting a whole lot of work into it. It's mostly going to be a little sanding and such. And this edge here, this fretboard edge right here, right along there, that's real sharp. A well-worn-in guitar, this will get rounded off, and what I like to do is take a round tool like a screwdriver and pressing real hard, just rub it like that, back and forth, and you'll kind of knock that sharp edge down and give it a smooth, kind of rolled edge. That's what they mean when they say rolling the fretboard edges. You don't get that in a $100 guitar because you got to pay some guy, I don't know, what do they make, 85 cents a day to do this on all the thousands of guitars that come off this conveyor belt. But that's going to be one of the tricks we're going to do to this. We're going to take this fret edge sander and we're going to knock down that fret sprout that's hanging out there, and then we're going to hit it with some steel wool. We're going to do all that while the neck's off because I don't want steel wool near these pickups. After we've dialed the neck in, we're going to go inside here. We're going to look at these. We're going to look inside here. We're going to hit anything with deoxit to just clean it up. Make sure it all works right. I don't think it's worth replacing any components. It's going to work just fine. It's going to sound just fine. I mean, it's a $100 guitar. What do you want? So I'm going to do a little more disassembly. We'll come back later and talk about what we're doing. Until then, jet out. Okay, tubers, the doctor is back. I've got this Telecaster apart and got a bunch of interesting things I've learned. Interesting thing number one, it looks like they used the original Telecaster routing plan with a hole through here and this little bit here. Another thing I noticed, the bridge isn't grounded. So I'm going to put a ground in there. There's no shielding, but, this is a cheap guitar. I'm not going to bother with shielding. It's as I expected. These cheap dime-sized pots, a little PCB selector, little cheap wires. So, you know, it's $100 guitar, and so it'll be just fine. We'll shoot a little deoxit on it, and it'll be good to go. You know, so we'll throw it all back together. I will add a ground there. Now let's take a look at this neck. The neck is now really nice. I use my fret edge sander or file to knock down the high spots, and then I rolled the edges like I talked about, and then I buff it with steel wool a long ways away from these magnets. You don't want to get steel wool shards over there. It looks like a bone nut. One of the things I like to do is round the edges on the nut here, so when you're down here, it feels okay, you know. So now, you know, the frets buff up real nice. They look good. They feel 1,000 times better. You know, this will be much nicer to play. So there you go, made in China. Let's see, 2000, God, is this 2008? No, it's newer than that. Maybe that's not 2000, maybe that's 20, as in 2020. Okay, so we're going to put this thing back together, string it up. Another thing you do on all these little rebuilds is you always tighten these up. For some reason, they always get loose because this wood expands and contracts. So take a 10mm wrench and tighten those up. They're always loose. Oh, yeah, one other thing I want to talk to you guys about. Here's another really good mod for a cheap guitar with a bolt-on neck. And that's these screw holes that go through here and hold the neck on. If the screw is biting into the body, when it gets to the neck, it never really fully pulls the neck down for a good solid contact. These holes need to allow these screws a slip fit. This body was properly machined. I've seen a lot of Squires, and in fact Mexican and American Fenders where this is undersized. You know, paint gets in there, your drills wear out, whatever, but you want these to be a slip fit. That way you get a full contact there. Another interesting thing, these ferrules oftentimes are pot metal. These are actually nice steel ferrules. That's kind of a nice touch on this guitar. So other than hideously cheap electronics, you know, these ceramic bar magnet pickups, they leave a lot to be desired. But overall, it's not a bad piece. You know, it's a 5-screw bridge here. You know, vintage style routing. Be an easy machine to upgrade. Once the neck is playable, decent pickups. You know, these aren't that bad. They work. I'd use them till they wore out. I'm not gonna, changing them out isn't really gonna affect your tone, as we know so many tone whores out there. Although pickups make a huge difference in a guitar, and saddles. If I were king for a day, I'd put brass saddles on here. These are no doubt zinc. Yeah, those are zinc. So I'd put brass saddles on a Telecaster just because it's a Telecaster. And decent hand-wound pickups. I'd go to my one of my hand winder buddies and have some hand wounds put in here. This thing would be sweet. Okay, that's enough for now. We'll put it back together and we'll talk about dialing it in later. Jet out. Okay, tubers, Jet's back with the guitar, ready to rock and roll. So we've cleaned up the neck, rolled the fretboard edges, cleaned up this fret sprout. It feels real good now. Taken off all the plastic so it looks a little better. We've adjusted the pickup heights. We've put some Detoxit on our controls, checked everything out. Everything's grounded. It plays well. We've set the neck relief. We've set the action here at 625 thousandths at the 17th fret. We've done our intonation, and it's ready to rock and roll. Cheap, quick and dirty. Little upgrade without spending any money on your cheap $100 Chinese guitar. Jet out.